Dear viewers, top analyst Sasha Demchenko and I work twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Write in the comments what you think of our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel, where Alexander Demchenko appears. And in the comments, write what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic I'd like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US no longer restricts strikes, that Germany has officially confirmed Ukraine will receive long-range missiles in July, capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and warehouses on Russian territory, that an oil refinery in Krasnodar Krai has just been blown up, Gazprom, and such a Black Sea Pacific fleet, while the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this, Ukraine is now gaining an advantage. What do you say?
I think the tables have turned. When the German Chancellor says the time for diplomacy is over, it means they've bet on war. They're ready to fight. So, for the first time in the last 6 months, I'd say in the last 3.5 years, because for 3.5 years, the bet wasn't just to deter Russia. They thought they could negotiate with Putin, persuade him, appease him, conduct parallel negotiations. There were different iterations, Biden separately, Trump separately, each had their own format. Europeans had no idea what they were thinking all this time. But now the bet is on war. They're ready to corner Putin, to twist him into a pretzel like a ball, right? So now it's going to be very tough for Putin. And it's no coincidence Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's no coincidence they negotiated twice on the sidelines of ASEAN in Malaysia. It's no coincidence Putin minimized strikes on Ukraine. That is, we're seeing a completely different reaction. Well, because Putin got on everyone's nerves. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with piss-soaked underwear, just expect tons of piss to be poured right into your face. That's it. That's what we've just seen. That's what we'll be observing in the near future. No one will stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, it was the only Russian aircraft carrier which was under repair for an exorbitant number of years. And in Russia, they honestly admitted, we are unable to repair it. Why are they unable to repair it? Attention question. No parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers. Sanctions ate everything up. And most notably, there's no money. There's no money for expensive aircraft carriers. And what about those plans to create several aircraft carriers, carrier groups to match America? And what about those talks that China is supposedly overtaking us? Let's get ourselves some carrier groups. There will be no more carrier groups in Russia and no more aircraft carriers in Russia. You'll fight with barges. That's it. You'll transport watermelons on those barges. There will be nothing more. Nothing. Everything's going to scrap. Yes, if it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have long ago fallen to its knees and begged for mercy. Well, not mercy, but at least, seriously speaking, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping. North Koreans are helping. Iran isn't helping as much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's word is worth, as he now brazenly wants to take Iran's nuclear technology and transfer it to himself. He's such a peacemaker. Let's give Iran another Budapest memorandum, courtesy of Putin, you see? We'll take their nuclear technology, move it to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so he has another extra red button, or so that red button just gets bigger. But no matter what, Dash, all this indicates that Putin has no money. The budget deficit is already 4 trillion. They say if Trump imposes sanctions, the deficit will be 7.5 trillion. That's a huge amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has $1 trillion in debt. It's bankrupt. All key Russian enterprises are bankrupt. Bankrupt. Every third car dealership isn't operating in Russia. A third of taxi drivers aren't working in Russia anymore. Mortgages have fallen by exactly 3 times. Mortgages have fallen by exactly 3 times. Putin has already devoured $350 billion. 15% of his economy. Hellish sanctions will take 30 and 40% of his economy. Oil production in Russia has fallen by 30 to 35%. There are no budget revenues. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money. And he needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? First, it means he will cancel, he won't give money, he won't pay his cannon fodder. Second, it means Vladimir Putin will simply reshuffle his entire elite. Shake up this elite, redistribute flows to his family, to his inner circle, taking these flows from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and took his Ural gold mining enterprise. They're already taking gold. They're already taking agriculture. What are we talking about? Putin has no money. He needs to find this money somewhere. He needs to get this money from somewhere. And he will take this money from Russians. That's all there is to it. Therefore, this whole mess will soon be over. If Trump, not just in words but in deeds, puts Putin in a severely submissive position, the war will soon end. Now, it is within Trump's power to change everything and turn this board over. I hope the board will be definitively overturned. And Putin is now very scared. He finally realized that he overplayed his hand. And he did it in vain.
Sasha, I want us to dedicate the last 5 to 8 minutes to Trump, but before that, an important topic. The Kerch Bridge, the Crimean bridge, occupied Crimea. This is very important, considering that now the Germans will provide us. I understand that with German funds, we've produced our own weapons, etc., and they'll be ready by month's end. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will Taurus missiles, Storm Shadow, long-range Neptunes damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kerch, the Crimean bridge, is an inevitable thing. What is ugly, what doesn't fit the architectural design, what was built according to Stalinist patterns must be destroyed and will be destroyed. You see, Dash, the story is this. There's no other option but to kick out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases, Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes Crimea is under threat, this regime will instantly crumble. Everyone understands this perfectly. When he's now transferring weapons, anti-missile, anti-aircraft systems, and so on, from the Donbass, which he and his criminal troops occupied, to the Crimean Peninsula, he's demonstrating to everyone, first, that he has a shortage of weapons. Second, that for him, Crimea is the most important thing if we consider all occupied Ukrainian territories. Well, besides all of Ukraine, but the British have already written that he'll have to wait 99 to 100 years. He won't live to see that. It's an obvious thing. I think his family will poison him with those pills. They'll prolong his life. Next, you see, this also shows that he doesn't care about all those people in the occupied territories. He's ready to sacrifice these people in Donbass and so on, in all occupied territories of Ukraine, just to save Crimea. And a strike on Crimea and a strike on this bridge are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall. The bridge will be destroyed. Malak is already sitting. He calculated last time we discussed this. 200, 200, 4,200, right? 4,200 kilograms of explosives. Well, fine. They calculated 4,200 didn't work. So it will be 10,000 tons. That's all there is to it. They already have plans for everyone there. All of this isn't just happening by chance. Have you noticed that not a single representative of the West, from Washington to Brussels to London, no one said anything about the Crimean bridge, explosions, strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone agrees to everything. There are no more prohibitions. All prohibitions have been lifted. There will be strikes. And German missiles and French missiles and British missiles and American missiles, everything will go. It will go to the occupied territories, it will go to the Kerch Bridge, and it will go to Moscow. Everything where decisions are made, from where strikes are launched, everything will be burned down. There is no other option here. No. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. So, a Russian official and a Russian citizen must understand that Vladimir Putin is to blame for everything. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, so Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. No more romance, no more marital period, or whatever it's called, honeymoon. No more. The bride is gone. For Putin, everything ends here.
So the question is, who is the bride in this tandem? Sasha, let's define you. Trump or Putin?
No. Well, Trump for a long time acted like a bride, but then probably decided to switch roles a bit. Now, yes, Putin is the dowerless one, not the bride, you see. Regarding Trump, continuing that story, look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we already see actions. The green light has been given. All obstacles have been completely removed. Missiles are coming, drones will go, and a huge number, millions of drones, tens, hundreds of missiles will go. And there will be strikes. This is inevitable. This is a given. It doesn't matter how Trump uses the money will flow, patriots will go, shells, ammunition, missiles, weapons will go, everything will go. There's no longer any illusion in Washington regarding Vladimir Putin. No illusion that Vladimir Putin might seek a peaceful settlement. He will be forced. And most likely he'll be forced this year. And perhaps sooner than we can even imagine.
Sasha, to finalize, a very important topic is that Trump, for the first time since taking office, is considering allocating new funding for Ukraine. CBS News. That's $3.85 billion. Moreover, Trump, as you said at the very beginning, may allocate new funding to Ukraine, $5 billion from frozen Russian assets.
Sanctions will be adopted directly with Trump's amendments. Trump will have in his hands the tools, mechanisms with which he can pressure both China and India and a number of other countries that buy from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black schemes and transfer dual-use goods, military, civilian, and so on, into Russia. That is, the flows will be closed, the shadow fund will be closed, mostly closed. I assume they'll slightly open the tap in America and Saudi Arabia, and oil prices will be deliberately crashed. And what else is very important, Dasha? So regarding sanctions, there will be sanctions. No need to worry, sanctions will happen. Trump will have the authority, Congress will approve everything, and so on. Sanctions will happen. As for weapon systems, we must understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. This was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He already tried. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times, nothing worked. He offered a meeting to Putin, nothing worked. He sent envoys to Putin, official figures and the Secretary of State, and then also the Secretary, his Security Council head, and his intelligence officers. He sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked. Nothing. When we are now discussing providing weapons to Ukraine, because Trump, in parallel, besides this Biden package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars from himself for Ukraine. He is sending 1 Patriot from himself. Norway and Germany, in agreement with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weaponry. This is the weaponry that this time saved Israel and will save Israel many more times. Therefore, Dasha, we are talking about a very important component right now. Donald Trump, the President of America, has crossed a red line for himself. He has crossed this Rubicon. We're talking about Trump, for the first time, allocating very expensive weapon systems to Ukraine, very costly weapons. This is just the beginning. And this is extremely important. So this step has been taken. He will not turn back from this path now. And this will directly affect the entire war, the course of military operations, not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, finally, the board has been flipped. Now everything is in Trump's hands. But another very important point, no one will play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin.
And we are approaching it. Brilliant analysis from Alexander Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week. On my YouTube channel, Dasha Shaslevaya, that's Tuesday, Sunday. On Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel, that's Wednesday, Monday. So watch us, give us likes, write a few warm words about our tandem. This is very important. We work for audiences all over the world so they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you very much and see you this Tuesday.
Until next time. Bye.
Separation within the AFU, SPU, and GUR continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. Last night, and still burning now, the oil refinery in Russia's Kshtovo is on fire. There are powerful explosions and fires there. This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow. Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with a secret superweapon. Missiles that can reach as far as Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg, and this is only the beginning. Oh! Night in Russia is like being in a prison zone. My actions. Here comes the second drone. A lot of them are flying toward the city.
It hit right on target over there. Oh, the second one. Take that, take that.
Really, what is that? A drone on... That's it now. Incredibly, the third one is also completely on fire too, burning brightly. We have top analyst Alexander Demchenko with us. Sasha, hello.
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, top news. The Germans said that the missiles will arrive any moment now and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg. A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up and submarines have been attacked. I read them. The most interesting news, the one I liked, is the symbolic collapse of the Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier. They might decommission and scrap it. What do you think?
I'll say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We're just at the start of this path. Look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got its headline right. The cover, the editorial. Putin ruined everything. Putin screwed up and made a mess for himself. You see, in the Kremlin, there in the bio toilet, what am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be a massive attack on Russia, especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get those missiles. There will be strikes. But most importantly, and probably even more so, Trump, who decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin, just now the news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen assets, and Trump will start by continuing with Europe. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely Trump has given Ukraine, or has already given Ukraine, attention, has already given Ukraine the green light to carry out strikes on Moscow, on decision-making centers with missiles. Now, out of nowhere, Patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany, 3 units. Interesting. Who gave permission for that? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will hand over long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a long time, for a very long time, were prohibited. Attention, and who gave the green light for this? If not Washington, then who? That's why Putin is now in for a series of extremely harsh surprises. Already the armed forces of Ukraine have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who destroyed that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life that image of the burned manege. The manege is right before my eyes. All those people who killed have already received what they deserve. Now there will be a very tough response for absolutely everything. Because this past week has shown absolutely everyone, including Trump in the White House, and all of Washington and the Europeans, that it's time to put an end to Putin, it's time to finish with Putin. The fact that Siberia is burning right now, that gas pipelines are exploding there, what do? They supply military units, they supply military factories. We need to explain what kind of gas pipelines these are. These are lines that supply gas production, which directly feed Russia's defense enterprises. They have been blown up. Just think, to what extent did one have to lose their mind for this to happen? And to mess things up so badly that now all of Siberia is on fire, not for the first time, and that there will be a NATO base in Azerbaijan, a NATO base in Finland, in Ukraine. Armies from Britain, France, and 28 NATO member countries will enter Ukraine after the ceasefire, which he is being forced into. You see, when I look at all this, I just have this realization. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is simply handing over his country to America, or there will be a coup in the Kremlin in the near future. Because no one has ever given up Russia the way he is giving up Russia. No one has ever given up Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. Putin fought to keep NATO bases from being stationed on Russia's borders, so that the minimum flight time to Russia would be 7 minutes. Now the flight time to Russia is just 2 minutes. NATO troops are already on Russia's borders. The NATO army is practically stationed near St. Petersburg, surrounding it. Do you understand? They'll put it under blockade. They'll blockade St. Petersburg. So what? And what then? So I think we're facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, the beginning of a major economic crisis. We're facing not only the rampage of Trump, who will force Putin to bend over in a very indecent and unpleasant way, doubled over like a ZIL truck, but we're also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis for the Russian Federation. I think that a coup d'etat, maybe even a military one carried out by a military junta, is not far off.
I'm curious, our audience. Please like this video and write in the comments who you think will carry out this military coup. Like, comment, let's go. Who is actually capable? Who has the mission, the message to do this?
I almost said Vladimir with pleasure. Lately, he talks about Trump's lip very often. He has some really strange fantasies. I don't even know. Do you dream about Trump's lip? Personally, I don't. I have no idea why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about it. He needs to dream about Putin's ass and his lips, and yet there are also Trump's lips. There are some really strange fantasies going on there. But by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Malyuk, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He is supposed to wake up and destroy the mafia boss Putin. Seriously speaking, what we've seen lately, I mean the murder of the former Minister of Transport in Russia, has changed everything completely. Now, the Chemezov clan is already under threat and will be targeted. This whole story with the wreath, when Putin sent the wreath, RIA Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, and then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. RIA Novosti deleted the report, Peskov backtracked and said that Putin hadn't sent anything. And 9 officials, led by Chemezov, 9 ministers with Chemezov, the head of Rostec, until recently one of Putin's closest allies, showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow against them. It's a blow from one clan to another. The Chemezov clan, the clan of that security official who opposes Patrushev and Sechin, and who talks about the need for reconciliation and a pause in the so-called war. This means that the Hawks have started targeting those so-called peacemakers. And now there will be a major showdown. At least half of Russia's elite will be wiped out in the near future. There will be big bloody purges. Putin will be killing, throwing people out of windows, imprisoning them. He'll do whatever he wants now. And this Chemezov clan, I think, these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this mini rebellion, a public one, a public flogging by Putin, were directly covered by the Rotenbergs and Chemezov, from whom the transport cash flows were taken today and transferred to the Kovalchuks. And specifically, Putin himself put all this money from the Russian Ministry of Transport straight into his own pocket. I think that now a massive purge will begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is currently under threat. And now, attention, the question, who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin towers. Now the blow will come from them. Now the other side will strike back. So we'll find out who will be left standing in the end. I think that Putin will now resort to absolutely repressive methods. The entire repressive apparatus, all the security services, all the Siloviki will be mobilized. But the question is, who will stand against him? I suspect that there will now be very large-scale purges, just a bloodbath in Moscow near the Kremlin. That the entire Kremlin will be turned upside down. I don't know, Dasha, whether we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow. That Putin has been cut off from communication, that the Kremlin is powerless and surrounded, and that a military junta has seized power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be massive purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath because the board has been flipped over. Because Putin has done something that no one has done since the days of Stalin. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalin not to destroy their own. Not to destroy their own. Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these same people don't stop him now, don't neutralize, remove, or destroy him, however they do it, whether they send him to a dacha, seal him in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or just take him out, whatever it takes, if they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now we are watching Russia very closely. There will be major showdowns, a big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, it was a very interesting story when we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones for 3 days in a row. After that, Russian military bloggers wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike with 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system, the Pantsir, had started attacking a civilian airplane. This information hasn't been confirmed, but it did appear, and they are jamming communications and the internet. And here is the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow and St. Petersburg? Could they shoot down their own plane, and why are they jamming communications? Could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist acts orchestrated by Putin himself or the FSB?
They are jamming communications for this reason. Everyone thinks they are fighting against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones. In reality, they are jamming communications so that all of Moscow and all the big cities know nothing and see nothing at all. This is an obvious thing. It's clear that this jamming doesn't really help them much. That's the first point. The second point, as for this strike in particular, we've talked for a long time about the passenger plane, the Belarusian one, by the way. Dasha, we've discussed for a long time the fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security forces, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others, are preparing a series of mass terrorist attacks on the territory of Moscow. This signal when the drone fell near Vnukovo, in a yard close to the Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and there was a lockdown. They weren't allowed outside the airport, not even outside the airport grounds. So not just the terminals, but the entire ground. So we're saying that yes, terrorist attacks are being prepared, most likely targeting airports. Most likely all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, Pulkovo are under great threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy some passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. For example, they destroyed the Azerbaijani plane, tried to pin it on someone else, but it didn't work out. Now the Belarusian plane, they tried to pin it on someone else, but it didn't work out. They're preparing some series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, when one of their anti-missiles falls on an airport, taking the lives of thousands of people. All this is to blame Ukraine and escalate the war. Escalate the situation, force everything, and cancel contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription-based system. No need to pay for cannon fodder as they've already calculated in the Kremlin. The truth is they don't have any money. They don't have enough money for the war in its current mode or for defense until the end of this year. After that, it's a choice. Either give money to their own people or send these people as cannon fodder for free, risking their own regime but still paying their security forces. Because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security forces. That's the second story. The third, when he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? And in fact, that's a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day and for no reason at all, Russian air defense forces could just launch anti-missiles and strike, especially since in Belarus, they're targeting the Belarusian plane, the plane of the head of state, Lukashenko. Lukashenko doesn't want to doesn't want to directly help Putin in the war. But how to help? To openly enter the war. He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic countries. Yes, he sends Putin's Garand drones through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to take risks because he understands that as soon as Putin, with his help, starts some kind of war, Lukashenko will be overthrown. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help them. He won't have time to run to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like this. Recently, we discussed a very strange coincidence when an Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader Ilham Aliyev was taking off. Now, there's another interesting situation. A Belarusian plane. So is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Is it, in a sense, a signal that you also have a plane? I can shoot it down, so either join me in the war or not. This is very interesting, especially since I thought that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, whose situation is unclear, whether he was poisoned or just fell ill like that, right? Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, yes, his ribs too. They broke his bones and sent him to Africa, and then his wife barely managed to save him from a basement, and so on down the list. General Spartak? All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair have all in one way or another been disposed of. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Starovoyt. I think he will be next, or General Gerasimov will be next. One of them will be executed publicly in the near future. But well, all those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, they have all been disposed of one way or another, neutralized. Only Lukashenko remains. I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko, and right now this is not beneficial for Ukraine. Because what we definitely don't need is for Putin to install his own Gauleiter in Belarus, an official, some lieutenant colonel or colonel of his own, another Chekist who would then directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is exactly what nobody needs, neither Ukraine, nor Europe, nor NATO, nor America. And it's not for nothing that he visited Belarus, not for nothing that he's holding talks with Lukashenko. It's likely that Lukashenko is being discouraged from both Vladimir Putin and from China. And lastly, regarding drones, everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is the most important news of the week. The US Secretary of Defense appeared and recorded a video. The video was widely circulated. Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
I saw it, yes.
You saw it, right? Everyone was laughing, but the most important thing wasn't what was being shown, but what he was actually saying. So, what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The US is becoming a drone nation. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important, for the US, small drones are now considered munitions, just ordinary ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used and replenished, and so to speak, they are not considered a separate type of weapon, so they can be written off without issue. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make or how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? It means that in the future, Ukraine will receive millions of these drones. Millions. And so, as you asked, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is also receiving artillery shells. Just recently, South Korea reported that it was 12 million. North Korea has already sent Putin artillery shells. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region, or I think they've already built it, to produce drones, thousands of drones. Therefore, right now, there is no other option but to send these drones to Ukraine to make it the most powerful drone country in America. And to give Ukraine the opportunity to test American modern technology on Russia. New technologies. So I think that Ukraine will get everything it needs, not only long-range missiles, but also drones. And of course, Moscow will be hit as well as all the other key centers, including decision-making centers.